He's learning. He's learning.
It's just fantastic.
Had to give us a little bark because we're doing a good job.
Thank you. So next we have the Mayor's Commendation Proclamation Acknowledgement. And this is National Nutrition Month, March of 2025. Hold on here. And Mary, will you come to the podium? Is Mary here?
Yes.
Mary.
Got to get a picture. Hi, Mary. Good. Good to see you. That's right.
Hi, Mary. So this is National Nutrition Month. And whereas food is the substance by which life is sustained, and whereas the type, quality, and amount of food that individuals consume each day plays a vital role in their overall health and physical fitness. I agree. Whereas better nutrition is related to improve infant, child, and maternal health, stronger immune system, safer pregnancy and childbirth, lower risk of non-communicable diseases such as diabetes and cardiovascular disease, and longevity. And whereas there is a need for continuing nutrition education and a community-wide effort to enhance healthy eating practices, whereas food connects us is the theme for National Nutrition Month 2025, which serves as a reminder that food is a connecting factor for many of us. Food connects us to our cultures, our families, and our friends. Sharing a meal is an opportunity to learn about its preparation, who made it, where the ingredients were sourced. Health, memories, traditions, seasons, and access can all impact our relationship with food. While these factors influence the food we eat, the foods we eat also affect our health. Now, therefore, I, Sandy Amara, Mayor of the City of Auburn, on behalf of the City Council, do proudly proclaim March 2025 as National Nutrition Month in the City of Auburn, and I encourage all citizens to join the campaign in an effort to achieve optimal health benefits from the transformative power of food and nutrition. And Mary, thank you very much. And on behalf of the city,
Thank you so
and
much.
if you would like to say something, it's up to you.
Oh, I
Maybe just-
I guess I'll say a couple of words. Thank you, everybody, for having me here this evening, and to the city council members and mayor, especially for presenting and accepting this proclamation request. I have been a resident of Placer County for most of my life. I now come from the Bay Area, but my parents are proud residents of the city of Auburn. So it was my honor to submit the proclamation request and really appreciate everybody's involvement. Thank you, Alice. I've known Alice for quite a few years as I run with her sister. So anyhow, thank you all for letting me be here tonight and to receive this proclamation. It is National Nutrition Month, and so hopefully you all can share a good meal with family, friends, and enjoy that food is not just for healing, although it has that good role, it's for connecting. All right, so thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the adoption of the agenda. This is a time set aside for council members and/or the public to ask for removal, postponement, or a change to the listed sequence of an agenda item. The agenda will be approved by consensus of the council. Is there anyone in the council who wants anything changed, postponed?
No.
And in the public? Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll move approval of the agenda as proposed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and will be approved by one blanket motion with a roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless persons request specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for discussion and separate action. Any items removed will be considered after the motion to approve the consent calendar. Do I have anyone on the council that would like any of the 5 consent items removed? Anyone in the public? Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Roll call, Councilmember Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Dowden Calvillo.
Aye.
Holmes.
Aye.
And Mayor Amara.
Yes, thank you very much. And next is public comment. This is a time provided to, pardon me? Oh, I thought I heard something.
Jonathan.
This is a time provided so the public may speak to the council on any item not on the agenda. Please make your comments as brief as possible, not to exceed 3 minutes. The council cannot act on items not included on the agenda. Items may be referred to staff or placed on a future agenda. Do I have anyone on council that'd like to say something?
I do, Madam Mayor, and I meant to say something under the mayor's acknowledgements. I would respectfully request that we adjourn tonight's meeting in memory of two individuals that did a lot for the city. First, we have Ronnie Denton. He was a former Auburn volunteer fireman, and he recently passed away. Just absolute a gem in our community, and very sorry that he lost his battle with cancer. Also, he was a Placer High School graduate. And again, he was one of our, in the early days, one of our volunteer firemen. I wanted to adjourn in memory of Ron Lehow. He's a former Auburn mayor and also member of the Board of Supervisors, a 54-year resident of Auburn who has contributed so much to our community, both in an elected capacity and also as a community member. I believe he was in the Lions and other service organizations, and he recently passed. I'd like to request that we adjourn in the memories of both gentlemen, please.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Any other public comment?
I do.
Yes,
Oh, you want to go, Mike?
actually, I want you first.
Yeah, I had asked city manager about concerns I've just heard from groups I'm part of regarding Prop 4 funding and the congressional budget allotments, and how some of the climate mitigations are basically getting kind of moved around, and if there's anything we could do as a council, primarily because a lot of the Prop 4 funding, I know groups in our community are looking forward to applying for to improve, trails and access, and I would hate to see it just substituted, and to make sure that organizations in our community that nonprofits that are looking to improve our city and access are still able to get those funds.
Do you mean the climate bond? Is that what you're talking? And I have some news I'll report during council.
That would be good.
Yeah,
Thank
to
you.
talk about that.
Councilman Holmes?
Yes, I wanted to, first of all, ask the city staff to reset the clocks to daylight savings time.
Okay.
And,
Look, just
right.
one. We missed one. Okay, but go ahead.
anyway, and I wanted to mention that this past weekend, the Auburn Symphony had two major programs on Saturday night and Sunday afternoon that drew a pretty large crowd, and also included an opera in which at the end of which two people died,
Oh,
and
in the opera.
Yeah, not in the audience.
in the
Musically,
opera,
maybe.
yes. And so I just want to hand out a attaboy for the Auburn Symphony and all they're doing for the Auburn area.
Thank you so much. And I'll piggyback on that. Shout out to the symphony. It was wonderful. The opera was wonderful too. It was great. What an organization that we have in our town.
Mayor, I had one.
Yes.
I just wanted to, I can't move that, sorry. I just wanted to remind everyone that the general plan, we're having a meeting on the 15th at 10 a.m. here in City Hall. And so it's talking about the future of Auburn, what we're going to be doing for housing and the environment and all how traffic's going to go. So if you're interested in where Auburn's going to be over the next 20 plus years, feel free to come. They do a little board game and it looks really like a lot of fun. So hopefully everyone will come out and share their ideas on what the future of Auburn should look like. So thanks.
Thank you. Anyone from the public comment? Public comment from the public? How's that?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. I'm Michelle Tuggle from the Auburn Chamber of Commerce, and I just wanted to come in and give a little update of what we've been doing lately. We do have a St. Patrick's Day parade and dinner coming up on next Monday, a week from tonight.
Let's do it.
It'll start at 5:17 at the top of Lincoln, just like normally our parade routes go. And then we will be having a dinner for $30 a ticket at First Congregational Church of Auburn, the one up on the hill. And that'll be provided by Max's. It's like a Guinness Irish stew over mashed potatoes. Lots of fun there. And then I just wanted to also update everyone like behind the scenes, what we've been working on. When I came in, we didn't really have any software to speak of. And so I've been doing some updates just like you at the city have. And we hope to onboard to our growth zone this month, which is a little bit scary. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of kinks, but I just want to assure everyone that it's going to be better in the long run. We're going to be a lot more able to track, and our users, our members are going to have a lot easier time on our website, which I'm sure you've all experienced. So that's about it.
Thank you, Michelle. Any other comment from the public? Thank you. Then we will proceed to council business. And the first item is the receive an update for the Domes Infill Acceleration Project. And I think Jonathan will be giving that talk.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. If you'll recall, back in June of 2023, the City Council formally accepted a grant from SACOG for a Green Means Go Infill Acceleration Project for the Dome site. This was a key initiative aimed at revitalizing the site and promoting sustainable urban development in the region. Subsequently, on April 22nd, 2024, the City Council approved a professional services agreement with AECOM, a global leader in infrastructure and environmental design, to carry out the project. And on August 12th, 2024, the City Council received their initial update, which tonight is going to be a follow-up to that initial update, just to keep the City Council in tune with what's been discussed and what we're working on, so that you can actively be a part of this developing project. And here tonight we have Matthew Gerken from AECOM, who will share where we're at.
Thank you, Director Wright, for that introduction. Hi, I'm Matthew, everybody. And I have a short presentation, and then Jonathan didn't mention exactly what it is I want from you, but I want something. I want you to tell me where we've got it right. Toward the end of this presentation, you'll see some concepts for the redevelopment of this site, and I want you to let me know you have that wrong, Mr. Gerken, or I like this one. That kind of input would be really helpful to us looking forward. So as Jonathan mentioned, we're studying a site here at Nevada and Fulwiler with the idea of making mixed-use development of that site more feasible, or finding development concepts that are economically more feasible in this spot that's near transit and near other amenities. The objectives include these on this slide: accelerating housing development, accelerating infill development, looking at feasible development scenarios, getting a density that's high enough to support transit use, which is next door. Here's a little snapshot of what we're doing and the schedule. We're a little over halfway through overall. As you can see, the big green arrow, we're here talking to you about the vision for master planning of this site. And what we do next is environmental review. So that's one of the things we're going to look at is once we get a master plan that everyone's comfortable with, we'll subject it to environmental review. So if a development comes through in the future, it doesn't have to do environmental review, and it can skip right ahead to financing and construction, other things. Here's an aerial of the site that we're talking about. It does have on the bottom right, you'll see the existing Domes facility, another county admin office also on the site. The red outline, the smaller red outline, not the dotted one, but the solid one, that's what we're talking about. We're not trying to propose anything that would supplant the library or the Auburn Green Theater, anything else, only in the red area. This is, we talked about last time, some of the key findings, just to remind you though, this is a great site for development. Jonathan and team were very smart to identify it and to seek grant funding to look at development concepts on this site. It's actually quite good. It's close to downtown, close to Old Town, has bus service, regional rail access, mature trees on the site, which could really help to amenitize a site if you use that in terms of redevelopment. There are significant grade changes to think about, but there are also large parking pads on the site right now, showing that there's already been grading on site. So if you want to be smart about spending money, sometimes you take advantage of the existing topography. That's cool here. Existing infrastructure, we've been told, is good to serve the site. That's good to know. It's easily accessible to commercial developments, to school, to parks, on foot, on bikes. There are some gaps, but simple fixes could make it easier for future residents of the site to get to downtown and Old Town. Here's an extremely detailed exhibit that I'm not going to try to read, but it's a visual depiction of some of the main opportunities and constraints, and is a part of your packet if you did want those details. We have also, like I intimated a second ago, if there are some relatively simple changes, this site would have really quite good access to both Old Town and downtown. We've described what those changes could be on this exhibit. And there's also the potential for, our detailed recommendations on getting from the site to downtown and Old Town to be built into the city's ongoing larger active transportation plan, and ultimately for costing this stuff and wrapping into future grant applications to actually construct these types of improvements. Okay, now we're getting into the part that I think you have not seen yet. And that has to do with looking at actual development concepts for the site. So we've been testing that red outlined area that I talked about before, looking at densities, parking counts, thinking about the cost of construction, thinking about the distribution of parking, thinking about the topography of the site and everything else. And I'm about to walk through some of the concepts that we've come up with. Right now, they're all positive residual land value. I'm sure everybody knows exactly what that means, and I don't have to explain it, but just for those who are not up to speed, that just means that, we're looking at these development concepts and we want to know if they're at least marginally feasible, based on construction costs and potential revenues on site. So right now we're finding that potentially all of these scenarios could be, but they're really sensitive to construction costs. And obviously that's a huge, scary unknown right now. Construction material costs especially. Also sensitive to interest rates, things like that. But the concepts you're about to see are potentially feasible based on the analysis that we've done. So maybe working from left to right, I guess. On scenario one, you see it's called central circulation just because there's a driveway from Fulweiler up through the central portion of the site. Scenario two on the right side, eastern circulation, just connoting that access from the south is pushed off to the eastern side of the site. At the top, you see a dark yellow and a light yellow. Dark yellow at the top of these diagrams are 4-story structures, and the lighter color of yellow, those are 3-story structures. And we've kind of created two scenarios and an A, B, C for each. A meaning flats instead of townhomes, flat multifamily apartments. Scenario B has both flats and townhomes. The townhomes are the little tiny yellow boxes. And C, scenario C in both cases, contemplates not touching the site where the domes are currently. As you can see from the stats here, we're talking 230 to 320 or so total dwelling units. We're talking about densities of 30 dwelling units an acre. At the very bottom of the scenarios, you can see that we're playing around with different bedroom count mixes in the flats. I think today in Auburn, about 20-something% of multifamily units are one bedroom. I think about 30% or so are two bedrooms, and about 20% three bedrooms or something like that, just to give you an idea. But you can see in the various scenarios, we're looking at different mixes of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. And then the other major difference is, as you can see in B and C, we've added townhomes along the exterior of the site in areas where there is some topography today, up in locations right against Nevada and Fulwiler, to create some contrast between these scenarios. I can obviously go back to this slide if you want to see something else. We're also thinking, all along, we've been collaborating with Placer County, which is a really, really good idea for this project because they own the property. And so we have thought about concepts where the domes could stay. Maybe that's phase one of a future project that doesn't affect the domes or the parking or the access to the domes. Or maybe there is a concept where the county has the ability to reconstitute or rethink about government facilities on the site. Maybe there could be a new structure that could handle some administrative capacity, some office use, and could have sort of a design nod back toward the domes. And so that's what this is representing. All of this we can study in environmental documentation, look at traffic counts, come up with lots of more data using these scenarios. And finally, this slide is a statement of the vision. We've been using this to guide ourselves when we think about urban design and transportation planning and engineering and everything else. We're using this vision right now. And if you had any comments on how we should change that, then that would be totally germane for tonight. But we're looking at developing an economically feasible master plan for the site, looking at densities that make sense to support existing businesses in the area and future businesses, create a new sense of place with a civic hub, some public open space. We want to complement and enhance existing city and county assets on the site and near the site. As I mentioned, we want to streamline the process for future development. And we want to think about a model for infill development as you finalize a brand new general plan. What does density, what does urban design look like for infill sites that, are a finite number of infill sites in Auburn. And so I think it's important to think about how they could be developed in the future. And this is a little pilot for that potentially. And then, as I mentioned before, identify improvements, simple improvements, cost-effective improvements if we can for pedestrian and bicycle access from the site to surrounding uses. At this point, thank you for your attention, and I accept any input, guidance, direction that you have on this assignment looking forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So you mostly want input on the scenario, the circulation, the type of, that's the main focus, or the vision?
I think
both?
both, but if I had to pick one, I think it would be this slide.
Yes, okay. So I'll open it up to City Council. And but with that, though, being said, this project is going to be contingent on the county moving out, and that could be quite some time. Is that right?
Yeah, I wanted to point that out. So we actually talked about this at our 2x2 last week with CEO and Supervisor Gustafson. So the county right now isn't necessarily looking to move like right away. Eventually, they would like to move from the domes, we think, although they haven't made like a we want to move for sure declaration. So the idea of this is just to basically pre-plan what could go there if the county decides to move the administration building somewhere else.
So yeah, that's a big if, but it's something that we want to have in place. And if we can, apparently, we could either fund it and do it, or we can send it out and have a developer do it. It'll be really shovel ready.
Yeah, getting the plan ready to go and then turning it over to a developer is the way that we would likely do that. The city wouldn't be able to fund it.
Yeah.
But having everything, so basically here's the master plan, Mr. Developer, go build this thing that we've already pre-planned for you, including the environmental work is kind of the goal for what we're doing.
Yeah. So,
On that end, Madam Mayor, I did have a question just about that, because obviously it is under the ownership of the county. You know, once we develop a master plan, I guess it could just sit on the shelf and wait. How long? I mean, the CEQA document is good for how long? Forever in perpetuity? I mean, I mean, there are master plans, like, for example, Baltimore Ravine, isn't there a master plan for that? So what,
gets renewed every,
well,
years.
the developer owns that. This
Yeah.
would be our master plan that we have in place. So tell me what the lifespan is.
So it can be in place for many years, and the CEQA document can be good for many years. It will depend on whether or not the eventual project matches or deviates at all from that. And so you would look at the CEQA document and what the changes have been. If there have been changes in the CEQA regulations, the CEQA guidelines, which occasionally happens over a period of time, you look at the impact between what was analyzed and what the new rules are, and CEQA accounts for that. So like the
Okay, so there still
vehicle,
might be some additional CEQA work, but
Might be a
let's
little.
just say that this is 12, 15 years down the line,
could be.
then if there was an enhancement, okay, so.
Yeah.
okay.
Mayor, if I may.
yeah.
Jonathan Wright, Community
Oh,
Economic Development Director again. So if you look at 1C and 2C, which has the domes intact, that actually is kind of a phasing program. So we could look at, you know, only doing part of the project and keeping the administrative side intact. And so that was kind of the goal, is having these structured so that you may not get the whole project to begin with, but it may be a longer term goal overall. So, and we want to be sensitive, obviously, to the county and their desire to stay in that area with the admin offices, but still allowing, because they are very supportive of the residential use on the rest of the property. So,
Are they in the other spaces, though? I mean, not everyone has moved out to DeWitt.
No, they're still in the other.
Yeah, they're still in the other spaces.
This is, I think, in our discussion, our 2x2, the idea of keeping part of the domes was basically to preserve the historic aspect as well. So I think that's the main
Right.
deal. So the other question I have, just so we have all the information before we start talking. So townhomes means it's for sale. Is that correct? People would buy them?
they could be individually sold, correct?
Okay. Whereas, so yeah, flats are not for sale, or, okay,
This is
so
Apartment.
there'd be mixed apartment and ownership
Right.
in B and C.
To a wider demographic
Right.
of
Yeah.
purchasers or rent.
And
look at
4-story, we support 4 stories is,
That's about as far as we'd want to go. And we'd have to call in mutual aid for a fire, for a ladder truck.
Do we have any height standards? I mean, I remember we talked about this way back in the day where Riscalize was. That building was supposed to look totally different. Do we have height restrictions right now?
We do.
Okay, so
this
the
would-
4 stories are consistent with the height restrictions?
No, this would be an overlay zone that we would apply during
Okay.
our general plan process.
So
that we
it's
could-
not, because we don't have anything that's 4 stories high right now. So that's my other point. Okay.
I mean, with topography, you may have some things that are close to it because we have
Yeah,
hillsides here, but
Yeah, but because that would be something that would be new for us, that 4 stories would be the tallest buildings that we have.
right.
and we did
And then
confer.
one other
Sorry.
question for clear understanding, the eastern circulation, where do you come in for the eastern?
So that would be paralleling the title company driveway on that side,
Oh, over there.
wrapping around the back side of the domes. And we've done analysis on it, including bringing Public Works out, and we believe that scenario works.
Is that the more desirable scenario then for,
You know, as far as circulation, you think about people living in there, you don't necessarily want to have a thoroughfare going right through the middle of the property because you do have, you know, youth and people that are maybe mobility constrained in those areas. So it's definitely a more comfortable scenario, but certainly either one could work.
okay.
Emergency response, I mean, you know, if there's a house burning, you'd have quick access.
Okay, thank you. Then I will open it up to city council, and Councilman Holmes has a desire to speak. Go ahead.
Yes, well, it's my understanding that there's a process going on to put the domes on the National Register of Historic Places. And I'm wondering if that is completed, whether that's going to affect these plans at all.
It'll affect the environmental analysis.
Yes.
It's not finished up, though. They haven't formally declared it as a But on it's an application has been made for that. It's not finished.
Who submitted that application?
It's a private citizen.
Okay, so that's not the
It was
county.
Mike Lynch.
Okay, but the county has not.
No.
Okay.
Well.
I just
no,
want to
but-
mention something that I think is important on that topic is if there's a building that's determined eligible for the National Register, and if the keeper of the register accepts that nomination, it does not mean that structure can't be demolished, touched, changed. It does not establish any rule like that. It just means there's more process to do that.
Administrative process.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I know you said that the townhouses would be owner occupied. And have we considered the apartments being owner occupied?
Is that part of the economic analysis? I think it was just for rentals, right? Yeah. I mean, so having the townhomes there provides, people that maybe couldn't afford to get into housing and have house ownership. So that was important when we looked at the scenario. It doesn't mean that how the output is going to happen. That's just the way that this was, the philosophy behind it was pushed forward.
So there's no plan for apartments to be owned by the residents.
It was not calculated into the economic analysis that resulted in identifying that this would be financially feasible,
Okay,
is my understanding.
all right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Holmes. Anyone
I
else?
do too.
Councilwoman Rachel Riddell-Hurst?
Thank you. I think this is great. Thank you both I know this takes a lot of time and effort to plan all of this out. I think that whatever we think makes the most sense, I think if the east circulation makes the most sense as far as for me, having small children, it's nice to not have people driving really fast through the middle. So that seems to make the most sense to me. But whatever, if that, as things change, I just really appreciate this. I really like the townhomes because I've heard from a lot of residents that it's hard to be a young family and to get into the ownership because because of the housing costs in Auburn. So it kind of gives a way of people kind of breaking into and having their first home somewhere in Auburn, which I know a lot of people have an interest in, but very few are able to access that. So that I think it would be great. And also having more multifamily in general, we have a lot of demand for that. We have a lot of people who work here and would like to live here. And I think this provides a lot of opportunity for that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Davis?
Yeah. And again, thank you for the work on this. I have a couple questions. On all the scenarios, the areas that are grayish white but don't say P, are those also parking?
The areas in between the buildings would be circulation and parking.
Okay.
Those ones that show the Ps are just designated parking lots, but there would still be parking within the internal areas there for resident parking.
Sure. So my question is, if we're doing a transit hub and we're trying to make a vibrant place making, if making the place in the center parking is the most vibrant option, or if that can be moved, or if we can reconsider, more parking over at the train station. Because if we have this vibrant capacity where you can bike to town and you don't have to get in your car every day, do we need to have our cars right outside our houses? Because if you may need it to go down to Costco occasionally, you may not want to look out your door and see your car. You may see a plug-in bike station. So just bringing that into mind, if this is what we are trying to create, we don't need to create parking as the mainstay in the middle. Maybe it's green space, maybe it's, playground. I think the domes hold nice potential for that kind of a placemaking. You could have a bike parking, secure area. So that was my thought on some of the ones that have parking literally in the middle of the design, is that, if you don't need your car that much, you can park it by the train station. And it wouldn't be a problem. So yeah, having space for kids, for dogs, for coming together as a community outside of your work time, if that's what we're building. And
Are you saying eliminate okay, so let's look at like 2C.
yeah,
You're saying get rid of the all the Ps, basically.
No.
No.
I don't know.
I mean,
I
we
think
need
she's
some
talking
parking.
about like central circulation.
Answer her question.
Yeah, so, you've got the domes, you come in, and then you have, the fourplex, the four thing on, either that one or the one above it. If the middle of that is parking,
Oh, I see.
we're not creating a space-making environment, versus if the parking is maybe on the outside or off-site, or just,
What is the middle on that supposed to be? Just,
These are going to be future parking areas for the residents.
oh, they are.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we have not gone into a ton of time for calculating that because we are next to a transit hub. So there is going to be a reduction in the amount of parking there simply based off of the nexus for people to use the train.
Yeah.
bus,
Thank you. I
give
just trying to
people, yeah.
clarify
So if you
that.
give people an option to drive and it's the easiest option, that's what they're going to do. But if there's some little barrier that says, oh, well, my bike is actually closer, more likelihood that they'll opt to bike into town and not drive their car for the week.
And I think it's also important to remember that this isn't like a site plan, right? So this isn't what it's going to look like for like when it's built. This is more like, think about like building, like putting Legos, right, on a board and figuring out what the capacity is for the residential numbers, not so much the parking and stuff in the actual layout.
Thank you. Anything else, Councilwoman Davis?
So I guess that means we don't need to comment on any of the bike paths or,
Yeah,
we're
go
not
ahead.
there yet.
Yes, you can.
oh, well, I didn't dig too far into them. I think you did capture a lot of the routes. So I'm giving you props, for seeing those good routes. And yeah, any way that we could improve that, the Nevada Street Transit and Fulweiler would be, I think, essential to this plan.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman
Yes.
Dowden Cavillo.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So we're talking about multi-housing opportunities, but is there any commercial opportunities there at all?
So we started out with proposing mixed use, but then when we did the economic analysis, if you really think about it, most of the neighborhood level amenities are already kind of in that area. And so we started worrying that the more we put in, the more we'd actually detract from local businesses. You can walk to the grocery store from here easily. You can walk to the pharmacy from here easily. The post office is there. The DMV is right there. I mean, it's a very unique situation that everything just happens to be right there. So yeah, no, we didn't, what we did put, so like a neighborhood type, obviously maybe a convenience store, coffee shop, something like that is still identified in this project, but it's an amenity more for the residents of the structures
I'm
here.
talking about.
Right.
I mean, I respect that, there's a desire for, trying to promote alternative forms of transportation, but, also recognizing that, I mean, you can easily get to the grocery store, but just having something in the complex,
Right.
I think would be beneficial as well. That really, at least it serves the residents. Again, I know that we're not getting down into the nitty gritty on the parking and all that kind of stuff, but, so we're just looking at the housing. I'm fine with flats and townhomes. If we think that I appreciate that people don't want, the central circulation, I think from perspective of, having that emergency access easily to all parts of the development makes the most sense. But if you're trying to achieve more of a green space, that's like I said, from a public safety perspective, I just think having that centralized circulation makes sense. So, but again, I also understand with Eastern Circulation trying to keep them out, but I don't know if any of this is going to be senior housing. We don't have that kind of information. So, but just again, for public safety purposes, I like the central circulation myself, but.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to say that I wish we could do this right away. This is a fantastic project. Great job. I just think it's wonderful. I love your premises, the vision, the opportunity it provides, serving as a model and bringing people in. And you're 100% correct. We have just a limited amount of space. Let's make the most of it. If we can go up 4 stories, I think that'd be wonderful. And the details, will come later. I love the concept that Councilwoman Davis said. Let's try and really encourage people, especially if it turns out as maybe well, even older people can learn to ride their bikes. So anyway, I just think this is a great plan and a wonderful vision. And thank you for this hard work you've done. Really appreciate it. And I think you kind of have a good idea of what we are looking toward.
And I wanted to also just say that, you know, again, for the purposes of the record, that this plan is being funded with the Green Means Go grant that was furnished to us by the Sacramento Area Council of Government. So the city of Auburn is not spending general fund dollars or any money really on this plan concept, you know, because there might be some folks saying, why are you planning for an area that, you know, it's not owned or controlled by us at this point in this point in the game. But we were able to access these Green Means Go funds, which are really geared towards development near transportation hubs. And so, you know, we are moving with those grant dollars. So that couldn't really be used for anything else. They're grant specific for this. So.
Exactly. Thank you. And that's correct. So we will be shovel ready when the time comes. So thank you. And public comment? Does anyone in the public have any opinion on this matter? Yes, ma'am. You want to come forward to the podium? Just state your name. We don't bite.
My name is Lucy Clark. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Lucy Clark. I did participate in the Placer 2050 general plan, passionate about preserving open space, and I love anything in that plan that includes green and open space and nature. Kind of breaks my heart to see that left side where the grade is and the trees are up there, to see that will come out. So anything in the plan that preserves some greenway, some beautiful trees, I think is really important. To your point about making green and community space in the middle where parking is, I think that's great. Although I do think a lot of the families and kids will end up playing at the amphitheater area.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe there's a possibility of, instead of a parking lot, parking structure. But I don't know how that will affect use of transportation. But I just really want to compliment you guys, because this is my first meeting in this. What I'm hearing is that you value the domes, which for me as a community member are part of what creates community, is that historic aspect. And yeah, I think the dome should be valued, and that you're valuing open space, green space, and I appreciate what you're doing in that point of view.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment on this matter? Thank you. Then we'll move on to the Auburn Wayfinding Master Plan presentation.
Oh, it's me again. Jonathan Wright, Community and Economic Development Director. So if you recall, the City Council meeting in November 28th of 2022, the Downtown Business Association requested a comprehensive master plan for wayfinding as part of their ARPA funding for their project. City staff took action right away, drafted a request for proposal. The goal is to create a strategy that would improve navigation and direct traffic into the heart of downtown and Old Town. And on November 13th, 2023, the City Council entered into a professional services agreement with Fair and Peers for the development of the master plan. Since then, a collaborative effort has been underway involving both members from the Downtown Business Association, Old Town Business Association, as well as city staff to help shape this project. And so tonight, Fair and Peers is here to present the final draft of the product, and that'll be Rob Hananucci, who's on Zoom here from Fair and Peers. And Rob, if you want to take it over.
All right, thank you very much, Jonathan. Can you all hear me all right?
Good.
Yes.
All right, excellent. I am sharing my screen. Is everybody able to see that?
Not
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
We got you.
We can see you. Yeah, that's good.
Okay, let me try this again. Share.
Hey, that looks good. We're getting there.
There we go. You're up.
All right, excellent. Well, good evening, Mayor Amara, council members. Thank you for inviting me here this evening. As Jonathan mentioned, my name is Rob Hananochi, and I'm a senior associate with Fair & Pierce. My team and I have been analyzing the travel patterns in and around and through historic Auburn, and I've also been collaborating with city staff and the Downtown Business Association to prepare a wayfinding master plan for downtown and Old Town. The goal of this plan is to identify a list of wayfinding signs that could be deployed in downtown and Old Town. As part of that plan, we're identifying the locations for signs, the content that we provided on those signs that are provided in a way that provide clear and intuitive guidance to travelers, as well as bringing heightened awareness to the destinations in downtown and Old Town. Okay, so as part of this effort, we have identified several different types of wayfinding signs as shown on this slide. Each sign type ranges in size and content based on their location and intended audience. So for example, some of these signs are more geared towards drivers on higher speed roadways versus others would be more geared for all travelers, including pedestrians and cyclists. In the following slides, I'll go over each of these in a little bit more detail. So we'll start with the gateway signs here on the next slide. So these gateway signs are the largest of the ones that we're proposing. They are intended to be the most visible to catch the eye of drivers. They are located at the primary entry points into downtown and Old Town from your major regional roadways. So for example, when you are exiting I-80 at the Elm Avenue off-ramps, or if you're traveling south on Highway 49 or Grass Valley Highway as you approach City Hall, or traveling north on Auburn Folsom Road near the fairgrounds. The list of destinations on these signs really focus more on the districts, so Old Town, Downtown, as well as those major civic institutions that could be destinations for those who are traveling from outside the area. So, for example, if someone was coming to attend an event at the Gold Country Fairgrounds or Placer High School. These signs are also intended to just signify, as you're arriving into, historic Auburn and all that Old Town and Downtown have to offer. So these next signs we're calling directional signs. So these are smaller roadway signs that are located along the roadways, really primarily once you are already within downtown and Old Town. So you can think of those gateway signs help you signify that you've arrived to downtown and Old Town. Now you've followed maybe your first marker of, okay, I want to head this direction. These smaller signs are intended to confirm to drivers that they're headed the right direction towards those districts, but also provide more detailed guidance to travelers to maybe specific destinations or landmarks, as well as parking. So Old Town and Downtown feature primarily on-street parking, but there are several public parking lots that are also off-street. That tend to be smaller parking lots, and in some cases maybe a little more difficult to find and locate, especially for someone who may not be familiar with the area. Although these signs are a little bit smaller, the text on these signs are the minimum size for drivers on slower speed roadways, such as Lincoln Way and High Street, but they're also appropriately sized for people who might be walking through the area or riding their bikes. These signs really help people navigate to those key destinations. They could also be used, for example, let's say someone has gone to park in a public parking lot. These signs could also help them navigate their way back to their car when they've finished their shopping or their meal or their visit to an art gallery or a museum. One of the key pieces of feedback that we did hear from the Downtown Business Association and from staff is that Downtown and Old Town do have these public parking areas, but with maybe the exception of a couple, some of them are more difficult to find. And so parking wayfinding really kind of rose to the top as a particular goal for this effort. So these parking signs are specifically designed to direct drivers to these public parking lots. Since drivers are the primary audience, the text is scaled accordingly to be particularly visible for people who are in vehicles. We've worked with city staff and the Business Association to identify proposed names for the public parking lots. The idea behind those unique names is to hopefully help those that are less familiar with the area to find those parking lots when they're arriving, potentially highlight a nearby landmark or destination like the State Theater or the Art Park, and also make it hopefully a little bit easier and less stressful to try and find their vehicle when they are ready to leave. So this is a map, an overview of all of the signs that we are suggesting. They are quite numerous, as you can see on this map. Again, the idea is we want to try and make it as simple and easy for someone who's coming into downtown or Old Town to be able to navigate. And just given the complexity of the street network in Old Town and downtown, compared to maybe some other cities that are kind of a neat grid, Auburn's got some cool character but that cool character kind of comes along with roads that aren't necessarily as orthogonal as maybe others are familiar with. And so really having a multitude of signs to help direct people is really valuable. That said, we are going to be working with staff to identify the kind of prioritization of these, recognizing that obviously there are some that are going to be really at key points to help guide and direct people. Others are really there more to just continue to reinforce that wayfinding. So since this is at a higher level scale, I also have a little zoomed in version here specifically of Old Town, just to give you an idea of looking where those signs would be as you're looking at Old Town specifically. I also have a more zoomed in map here of downtown. I recognize I'm kind of going through these a little bit quickly. If you have specific questions or comments about these signs, happy to go through those in more detail. I also have, we have all these on a web map, so we can even drill down into more specifics if there are questions.
Yeah, we're not, because we can't tell by that map what kind of sign it is. I mean,
Yes, yes.
each is little, I don't know what any of those mean.
Yeah, maybe I should, yeah, I should clarify. So maybe a little bit challenging to see at this scale, but all of the blue signs are signs that are at parking lots. So for example, I'm not sure if you're able to see my cursor here, but this sign here would be at the Joelder Station or across the street from the State Theater. This one down here is like at the Art Park, for example. The green signs are those that are focused on parking. So those are particularly locations where drivers may need to make a turn to get to a parking lot. So for example, those that are coming down High Street, you have a couple public parking lots over here off of Placer Street. So that would help guide travelers to make that right turn to find those parking lots. The purple signs are those roadside signs that provide kind of a more detailed list of destinations. So for example, those that might be coming up from the canyon and approaching Elm Avenue here, it would be able to guide folks that if they're trying to head towards Central Square, that
So that's like the roundabout. Where is that on that map?
So the roundabout would be up here in the upper, up here in the upper right corner.
Okay. Good. All right.
And yeah, so sorry, I'm talking about this sign here on Highway 49 as you're coming in. Yep, so it would direct you. So for example, if you're going towards Central Square to head down this direction, if you're heading towards Upper Lincoln to kind of follow over to Cleveland. But if people wanted to go to the Gold Rush Museum, it would identify that as a destination by making a left.
What's the gold circle?
The gold circle here is those large gateway signs. So
gateway signs. Okay.
Exactly. So given that this is where people maybe traveling from getting off of I-80 and getting off at Elm Avenue here, maybe if they're headed, for example, down towards the canyon, just grabbing their attention, identifying that there are in fact, in this case, the sign directs people to go down Elm Avenue to go to, whether it's towards downtown, Old Town, the fairgrounds, or any of those civic destinations. So similarly here on the Old Town map, so those gold signs are your gateway signs. The purple are kind of the more roadside signs, the blue, the parking areas, and the green helping direct people to those parking areas. One other recommendation that we have that's kind of shown here in the yellow. So these are all on highway off-ramps. So on highway off-ramps, those are controlled by Caltrans. And so Caltrans has specific rules about what you can and cannot put along freeways in particular, but any of their state highway facilities. And so for those, unfortunately, we're a little bit more limited in what we can recommend in terms of something that's more eye-catching or that follows the city's logo, and something that is a little bit brighter in nature. We have to be compliant with what's called the California Manual and Uniform Traffic Control Design or Devices, or MUTCD. And so you'll hear me talk about the MUTCD here a little bit in part of this presentation. All right, one other item, staff also requested that we look at the existing city limit signs as for possible replacement to these signs in a way that makes it cohesive and consistent with the wayfinding signs. Some concerns that we heard from staff was that these signs, just given their darker coloring, that their visibility might be a little more challenging for those to see. In some cases, they haven't weathered as well, whether it's exposure to the elements or to the sun. Fair and Peers, we've also noted that these signs technically are not compliant with the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. If you were to read that by the letter of the language in the MUTCD. So we did look at some possible options for replacing these city limit signs as well. So that's what I'm showing here on this screen or on the slide. These ones on the left, I'll call them that they are maybe more compliant with the Manual and Uniform Traffic Control Devices. That means like essentially what the MUTCD says is that city limit signs should be primarily green in color. So you've probably seen those if you're traveling on the freeway system, and when you cross into Placer County or when you cross into Auburn, the city limit signs or county line signs, you'll notice that they're all pretty much this green color. The MUTCD does allow you to incorporate the city logo, just as long as it's not the dominant feature of the sign, essentially is what the language says. That said, we did want to be sensitive to the city's logo and the branding, so we did also develop a couple other options here that are still kind of trying to do our best at being kind of the spirit of the MUTCD, but you'd want to maybe confer with your city attorney to confirm, are we willing to kind of go out on that branch, but provide something that's a little more distinctive as you come into the city.
And we would like some feedback on these specifically.
I like the branded one on the bottom because it still has the green and white, but it has our logo too. So, I mean, I like that one.
Mhm.
Consistent with the green and white theme, but, is compliant, but still
The one on the bottom right,
on the bottom right. Yeah. Under the branded column.
is that acceptable though? I thought he said
It's not compliant.
it's not compliant.
I also like that one. Could it be compliant just by making it all green? Like keeping the font and the design, but all in the compliant color?
We did attempt to start to look at that. In doing so, like the red just doesn't show up quite as well.
Like if it was white, like the white turns green, the green turns white.
Right. We We did look at that as well. It it depends on which direction we want to go. So if when we're using kind of the bright green with the logo with the white lettering and then bringing up the screen a little bit more, this green just doesn't marry very well with the green of the logo. So that was kind of the challenge we ran into, which is why we have kind of separated the logo in this version.
And
compared to
I
this
also
one.
like the one that the top one under the MUTCD compliant one. Like if we had to pick a compliant one, I would choose that one because it still at least has our logo that, you know, but that's clearly the kind of sign you see when you get off the freeway and you go into a different city or what have you. So
Yeah, it's a little less distinctive.
yes, it's very typical. Yeah.
What size would these be? What size are we thinking? Like,
These are about 4 feet wide and about 2.5 feet tall. So for reference, these existing city limit signs are about 4 feet wide. They're, I think, closer to only about 2 feet tall. So a little bit taller than these existing signs, but about the same width.
And they're rectangle, if I,
Mhm. Yeah.
Yes, yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the blue is okay, the blue background.
That's just intended to be like, imagine that's not there. It's just like the sky. So
it wouldn't be
yeah,
it.
so the sign component would just be what you see in green and white.
Yeah. So just
I
the
see.
top would be the
Oh, I
logo.
see.
and
Okay.
then- Yeah.
You would see any of that. Okay.
Mhm. It would just
Exactly.
be kind of a nice little top.
Yeah.
Little hat.
Yeah.
Honestly, for myself, I like the bottom right or the two on the left on the bottom, simply because the one up above on the MUTCD one compliant,
Mhm.
it just looks, I mean, what stands out is just that rectangle Auburn city limit. It looks like nothing new to me.
What's the
Mhm.
difference between the two signs on the left on the bottom? I don't.
Yeah, I don't
What
see
is
Yeah,
it.
the
so
difference?
There's the white
yeah,
one.
so we were
Oh, the
taking
white line. I see.
yeah, we were
Okay.
taking this from the logo and made that into white space versus this
Okay.
one. Yeah, we kind of just copied this but turned the white into green.
You know, Madam Mayor, I agree on the compliant one. Maybe I like the far left one on the bottom with the white line, but I also like the one on the bottom for branded, you know, like, but now
Yeah, I
that we
do.
know we don't have that blue, so.
I think we should pick a compliant one. I mean, city limit signs are very utilitarian. They're not made to be very pretty. A lot of cities also additionally have city limit things that look similar to like the airport entrance and stuff like that that they do to make it more visible versus just the compliant sign that we need to have at all the city entrances and exits.
Could you want us to pick one of each or just pick one or is this something, do you have an idea? Do you need?
What do you, yeah, how
input?
specific do you want us to be? Do you want us to say which sign?
Well, we're just trying to get an indication of the direction you'd like us
Yeah.
to head with this. Obviously, the compliance sign, there's less worry about, you know, Caltrans coming back at us and telling us to remove signs we just paid for and put up.
Yeah, okay. Let's just, I think we all are kind of thinking that far left bottom one with the line. Does everybody,
I
Mike?
think that's good.
Yeah, the farthest one to the left on the bottom, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, do we have to make a decision on
No,
the?
no
other-
decisions, just getting information here. from you.
Okay.
All right. You can continue on, Rob.
Could
I
all
think
get
that
that done.
Is that
yeah,
it?
that concludes the presentation that I had, but I appreciate the input for sure on the city limit signs. I'm also open to any feedback that you know, council members or the mayor have on the design and content of these parking signs, the directional signs, as well as the gateway signs.
Mayor, if I could add additional comment here before we go into questions from
please.
council. So Rob, can you go forward towards the end? You had the extra slides in there and you had some of them for the parking areas.
Mhm.
Some of these parking areas have been dedicated. And so we wanted to make sure that we didn't lose that. And so actually there's two different versions there. Again, there was science behind how we did the parking area because it's geared for the tourist that comes in here. So if you're looking for a train trestle parking lot and you say, well, there's the train trestle, it naturally directs you in that area. But realizing that that is a dedicated lot, that obviously the traveling public more likely isn't going to know who that individual is, but we still wanted to make sure that that was documented on there. So the lots that have been dedicated still have that on there, even though the State Theater lot has now been called the State Theater lot, even though technically it's not their lot, but that's the reference point we put on there, but it still has Joe Elder.
Yeah, the Elder
listed underneath.
Station.
Yeah.
Joe Elder Station.
And actually, we'd like maybe input on which of the two versions the council likes better as far as presenting, because I know this is a sensitive subject, so we want to make sure that we don't do this in a vacuum and have people be.
I like it on the one on the right. It's a Joe Elder Station in parentheses, because that's oh yeah, that's the Joe Elder Station parking lot. I'm going to, because I know it is both State Theater lot and, I just think it's simple. I like it.
I personally think it's great if you thought of that, and I'm either way, whatever the council desires, I like it,
Well,
both
that's
of them.
for me too.
Yeah, I'm neutral. I'm fine.
It's great that I didn't even realize the Charlie U lot was, I didn't even know. So,
Charlie U lot is very recently dedicated, I
The
believe.
Historic Society's dedicating it now.
oh, that's why I didn't know.
They're putting some signs up for that.
Okay, so that's why I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so the public parking we did strategically, because again, public parking isn't such an issue. We hear about it all the time. And trying to create a nexus between the parking area and something that somebody can understand just coming into town. You have the, let's say the jury parking lot. Well, unless you're going to be on a jury and you specifically got a map, you're not going to know where the jury parking lot is. So both those were called upper and lower Old Town parking. So when you come into town, it automatically directs you to Old Town parking instead of, to a jury parking lot, which you're not sure what that means. So we kept it very simple.
Yeah.
When you get into downtown, what is one of the things as soon as you turn onto High Street that you see?
Lower Old Town.
Well, yes, upper and lower Old Town parking. That's how it's phrased. So, and when you're directed up the hill there, it says there's two parking areas, upper and lower. So you don't go into one and not know where that driveway goes because it's the second one, it's the upper one. So you're naturally drawn to those. So in downtown, you have the clock tower. Well, East Placer lot, you and I know what that means, but coming into town, nobody knows what the East Placer lot is. So we gravitate to those things that we could grab onto nearby that people would, correlate with, oh, that must be what they mean by the clock tower
lot,
parking.
because it's
And so not trying to take anything away from the former names. I'm sure all of us are still going to call them by their previous, but the signage will direct people in a very rudimentary
that's
manner to try to get to where they
Yeah.
need to park.
I like
Thank you.
that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions? Was there a question on size or, in
Well,
any of these,
he's
or
got
is
the
anybody
size
here?
listed out there in the beginning.
Uh-huh.
And those are certainly things that we'll be looking at. When we hired Fair and Pierce, we didn't hire a graphic design company. We hired a traffic engineering company. And
right.
so the size and the fonts and those things are based off of traffic speeds, what's accepted generally by traffic standards, and putting those things together. We also had content that we had to add to those signs, and we want to make sure it was clear, this is what you're doing. Where is Upper Lincoln? Where are all those detailed areas that we have in town? So it took a little bit of size to make some of those things happen.
I see. Very good.
Is there going to be a sanity check a little bit on some of these things? Because though I appreciate the interest in the gateway sign, 11 feet by 11 and a half feet seems humongous. And so a little overwhelming. So in certain contexts, it may work, but certain contexts, like those brown signs near the fairgrounds are really big for the amount of content that they give you. Our brand is nice. I don't know if our brand should take up as much room as the wayfinding. So there might need to be a little bit of a sanity check on what gets our point across versus these massive signs.
So,
You have to be able to see them from driving.
Yeah.
Yeah, but do they have to have the brand on top of them that's as big as the actual signage? I'm just saying, it might be worthwhile to put,
we're trying to
a
keep with our
lesser
brand standards that we have out there that
Yeah.
were recently created. But if you look, you'll actually see that a lot of these signs are not much larger than what we already have.
Oh,
I know it's hard
Yeah.
to really, you know.
Yeah, those seems huge and obnoxious when I drive past them. So that's why I was
Yeah,
saying,
but
I'm like. I
these
just
are
wanna
going to
make
be
sure-
beautiful though.
I know, but I'm just,
Yeah.
There's only a very few of these gateway signs. They're very few.
we created the brand with the intention of not having to use all the pieces all the time. So I don't know if it needs the top portion and everything. I'm just saying it might be worthwhile taking them and putting them in context and the location and making sure that they all fit in the right spot. I know that, I mean, some of those normally a parking sign doesn't seem as like it's 5 feet wide when I'm looking at it. So maybe it's just that I don't view them as being that far because I'm driving past them, but I just want to make sure we're looking at them and not having signs that look obnoxiously strange.
And more importantly, that the font is large enough so that people can see it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
I'm really relying on our sign expert, our wayfinding sign expert to tell us what is the right,
Me too.
Did they take all of these and put them in context and make sure that all the sizes were correct for the locations that we're in? Or is this just done kind of in on
Yeah, there's
computers?
There's a formula, right? I mean, I'm sure.
Yes, yes. So I can provide a little more background on the details there. So we did there were a few different objectives that we were trying to balance. So first, like many of you pointed out, we do have guidance in the MUTCD about the size of letters on roadway signs. So these large signs here on the left, we are using 6-inch letters, which is what MUTCD recommends using for wayfinding signs. There is guidance that allows us to go as small as 4 inches when roadway speeds are 25 or 30 miles an hour or less. So hence why we were able to go with some smaller font sizes when you're looking at these directional signs. The parking signs, believe it or not, where it says Magnolia lot here and on these signs, those are also 4-inch letters. So again, intended to catch the eye of drivers, be legible to drivers when they're driving, say on a 25 or 30 mile an hour street. The public parking is a little bit larger. It's about 5 inches, but again, it's trying to highlight for those folks that are not around and trying to identify, okay, that's where that public parking lot is. One of the unique aspects of these signs, I would say, compared to other wayfinding signs that Fair and Piers has worked on, or in just in our kind of literature review and looking at other wayfinding sign programs, but that was very important to staff in the business association, was these listing of distances. So typically, some other communities, when they're providing wayfinding signs, in fact, those current brown signs are a good example. They just provide an arrow directing you the direction of a particular destination. In these signs, we are also listing the distances to those destinations. So the benefit there for the traveler is it gives them a rough idea for how much further away they need to go, or how much further they need to travel to get to that location. In doing so, it does make the signs a little bit wider than they would otherwise be. So for example, these signs could probably be maybe about a foot narrower if we were to get rid of the distances, but the distances do also add that additional value or information for travelers.
For bike and ped also, who's trying to get around town and wants to know, oh, it's only 400 feet this direction.
I think it's great. I think the size look great. I just want to make sure that we're checking to make sure that they make logical sense with the context that we're putting them in. So I just want to make sure we're just looking at that when we're installing them, that they're not overwhelming and taking over the space too much.
Yeah.
And as far as the heading on the top there, we did a number of different scenarios. Some were just a green sign. The problem is you get that dark green with the background of green in, Auburn, and it starts to disappear. We wanted that recognizable, everywhere you go, that brand to stand out. And for everybody to know that you're in the historic Auburn district. So specifically, remember, we're trying to unify Old Town and Downtown. So everybody, and directing them in here was to the historic district. And then when they get here, they break it down to Old Town and Downtown. So you really feel where you're going.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. The only one that sticks out to me as being a bit much is the gateway sign, because the brand is just about as large as the rest of the information. So that was the only one that seemed like it was pretty large. So I just want to make sure that if it's 11.5 feet, that it works with the space that it's in.
And Rob, correct me if I'm wrong. The sign width is the same as what we currently have there, and the height was different by 2 feet?
About 4 feet.
Oh, 4 feet, okay.
But that 4 feet does include the arch though. So I can't remember exactly at the top of the square part of the sign. I think that's maybe closer to about 10 feet. Or yeah, somewhere around 9.5 or 10 feet. So that would put it, about 3 feet, 3 or 3.5 feet taller than those existing signs.
I'm going to say, I really like the signs. They are a huge improvement from what we have, and I love that you have, the distance and all of that. I like I really like them. I'm very happy. And so my question is, Madam Mayor, we had enough money to design the signs. We have enough money to construct the signs as well, or do we do those in-house?
There's some funds available. We've actually networked a partnership with Old Town, Downtown, and the Chamber of Commerce, who has contributed funds to help us buy signs and have them installed. If they're on existing sign poles, we could probably do it with staff. We'd buy the signs somewhere and then have it installed. But if they're new signs, depending, we may contract that out. So at some point, you're probably going to see an RFP come back through here that's requesting your approval to go forward with bidding this project.
So I love the fact that we have the chamber, thank you, and the 2 downtown business districts that are willing to pony up a little in addition to the ARPA money for that. So thank you to all, because it's going to benefit all of us. And I really do appreciate the business districts both and the chamber for, we're partnership, and let's get rid of these old signs ASAP.
And does anyone from the public have any comments? Oh, and Councilwoman Davis?
Jonathan, I had one more thought on the parking. I think from just a little nerdy perspective, in honor of is a little bit like, it might signal you to be curious about who that person is. And to say, oh, this was in honor of, not just like, oh, that's Joe's lot because Joe put it in. So I think in honor adds a little bit of softness to it. That's my feedback on that. And are we putting any signs to direct people to like Overlook Park? Or, I mean, nobody's really having trouble finding the confluence, but are other prominent trailheads, is that on the map for inclusion?
Yeah, if I recall, so we only had so much room on the signs, and we're trying to connect to the local
Business.
well, the business districts, as well as those larger, like the fairgrounds,
Yep.
Things that people go to. And in fact, some of the directional signage may be counterintuitive to what, their GPS tells them to go, because we intentionally directed people through Old Town and through downtown as a means to get to different places so that they would find it, discover it. And so when we got down on Auburn Folsom, correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, but I believe we started adding in the parks that were down there so that people would then have direction. Once they get close enough to it, you'd start to see, oh, look at the parks down this way. And we only had so much money and so many signs, so then we stopped.
Just saying, let them know how close they are to the trails.
I just wanted to say one.
Yes.
I need to quit doing that. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to say thank you for all the work you've done. Thank you to Old Town and Downtown. I know that April worked really hard on this as a project as well. I know there's lots of mixed matchy brown and black and all kinds of interesting signage through town. And so it'll be nice to have that cohesive feel. And I appreciate the way that all the branding is kind of worked into all this. And so I just wanted to say thank you to everyone involved in this. This will look so much nicer and look so much more cohesive as a city. So I really appreciate it. All the energy.
Thank you so much. And I want to add that the new signs provide 2 things that I think are important. Number one, it's catchy. I didn't even notice we have any signs in Auburn, I'll be honest with you. Number 2, it gives you direction. And finally, we will unify downtown and Old Town, which is one of our goals, very important. So let's get on with this. I'm excited. We may have a project that we're going to actually complete. Thank you, Chamber. Thank you, Downtown, Old Town, and the City of Auburn. So it's exciting to complete a project, and this looks like we're going to get there. So I'm very happy about that. And
get as far as our money will let us get.
yeah, counting on completing. No. So do I have any public input? Joe?
Good evening, and thank you. My name is Joe Looney. I've lived in Auburn for over 35 years. I was originally involved a bit in the streetscape, and I have been waiting 25 years to see this level of wayfinding. So really appreciate the great work done here. Just one thought as a member of the City Sustainability Advisory Committee. Spent time in Old Town and downtown, but I've really, over the last year, I've spent a lot of time in between and with other members of the committee working on the lawn to garden project. And if it may be beyond this particular project, but one thing we have discovered is that where we are right now, this little section of town that's always thought as a connector between Old Town and downtown is really something special. It has its own unique identity, and it's a destination in its own right. And it's just different. It's different spatially. The content is different. So as this project goes along, when it gets down to the details, as far as exact placement of signs and just if it can be kept in mind that this section right here, whatever we want to call it, can use some wayfinding too, because if you to get somebody from Old Town to here is just
City Hall.
easy, and then you can get to downtown and vice versa.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good point. Any other public comment? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Hanucci.
Well, I wanted to add one quick thing. There was talk at the last meeting about the sign in the roundabout and it being incorporated in this project. It hasn't, obviously that's not in this scope. So I think we'll still need to talk about that with staff.
Well, there's a gateway a sign. I think they were talking about being near the.
Yeah, but that's like the big
Yeah,
brown ones. This is, I'm talking about like a pretty
So
Auburn,
city limit.
something in the middle of the, like,
Yeah,
like not a.
I
gateway
think that's
direction.
going to be for another day.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, we talked about it being included in this. It's obviously
Yeah,
not.
it's a
So we'll need to-
separate thing. And like those kind of gateway signs, those, the kind of like entryway signs, we don't want those to be the kind of sheet metal reflective kind of a sign. It needs to be something that's a little bit nicer. So we'll be planning that and figuring that out as we get closer.
I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much again, and we will move on to our next item, which is the city manager report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So a couple quick things. Of course, this is on the dais and then also in the back for folks if they want to see it, also posted online. So my glasses are dirty. Sorry. So this past Friday was Employee Appreciation Day. So we had staff gather on Thursday because we have folks out on the 980 schedule on Friday. But we gathered folks on Thursday for a pizza lunch to share some fellowship and some Old Town pizza. So we stayed with local, of course. I've said before that cities are in the people business, whether those people are residents, business owners, patrons, or employees. Employees are the ones who are the driving force behind the city, and we simply can't do the work that we need to do without them. So I just wanted to recognize that last Friday. I was able to go on K-High Radio for the first time last week also. I was interviewed on my background, a couple of the pressing things that the city's been working on lately. And I've been told that I have a face for radio. So K-High has asked me to be on for about 15 minutes once a month on the first Thursday of each month at about 8:14.
Oh,
So
very specific time.
that's how radio works.
Not 8:15.
Not 8:15, not 8:13, 8:14. Conversation around the preservation of Station A, so the historic post office in Old Town, is moving forward in an exciting new direction. So our city historian and the Placer County Historical Society are collaborating with our Community and Economic Development Department to explore the possibility of creating a tourist welcome center and a museum. So reopening the post office, not to be a post office, but maintaining the kind of historic fabric of what's there and building upon that. So we're meeting with the building's owner, who appears to be open to the idea And then the teams were currently working on a business plan to cover the cost of the rent and the utilities. Be a partnership with Old Town Business Association, the city, and the Historical Society. So we'll keep you updated as that goes forward and keeps moving.
Need a little umbrella nonprofit like we had for Carnegie.
That's actually one of the things that we talked about.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
would be a perfect model. I mean, yeah.
Those are the kind of the big points. I can answer any questions that you have if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Future agenda items, discussion and identification of topics that may require attention of upcoming meetings. Council member proposes new ideas. Now is the time to bring it up if you'd like anything on a future agenda. Anybody in the council? Yes, Councilman Holmes.
Yes, we were talking about home purchases and so forth earlier, and I wanted to mention that looking at putting a co-housing development in up on Nevada Street.
I'm going to interrupt you for 1 minute. Are you doing a council report or do you want to put something on a future agenda?
I'm saying that I wanted to let you know what it is, that it may be on a future agenda.
Okay. Go ahead.
So.
Well,
okay.
my point is we can't discuss any item that's not on our agenda, so we don't want to get into too much detail.
No, I'm
but-
just telling you that there's some ongoing action that may be coming to the agenda in future
Somebody else might be bringing it, I think is what he's trying to say.
Okay,
that
thank you for that.
has to do with a co-housing project
Okay,
up on Nevada Street.
okay, good. Is that it?
Well, that's all I'm going to say. So,
Okay. Did you want to put that on the agenda or is that just you're giving? us
Well,
information?
we're in the process of setting up some informational things
Something for us.
Okay.
to do, make the public aware of this.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so now city council committee reports. Councilwoman Rachel Riddell Harris.
Sure. Well, the big one that's been happening a lot lately is the Youth Commission has had 3 different things going on. We had 2 meetings this last month, and we also went to the wastewater treatment facility, so that was great. There's been some back and forth on what their project's going to be, but it looks like we're going to do a senior ball at the senior center, so youth and the seniors can have a little event together, and they're really excited about putting that together probably in the first 2 weeks of May. So I'll give some more information when that comes out, but they're really excited about that and getting the leadership groups involved from the different schools and things like that. So that should be pretty fun.
Thank you so much. And Councilwoman Davis,
I have nothing to share.
thank you. And Councilwoman Dowden Cavillo.
Yeah, so I just wanted to report, we did have our League of Cities meeting, the Board of Directors, February 20th and 21st in Rancho Cucamonga. And at that time, we had quite a discussion on wildfire issues and talking about various ways to implement being firewise and things of that nature. One thing that I did ask the League of Cities help for is really working with our state and federal partners. If any, the league is the most powerful advocating resource for cities, right? And so I said we could really use some help advocating on behalf of the cities for access or getting the state partners, Caltrans, Parks and Rec, those to take preventive actions on their own properties and federal properties too. So just, it's obviously we do our own effort. We're out there, yay, please do it. But having the League of Cities out there and advocating to get our partners to do their thing as well is very important. Some cities have very difficult times, for example, with Caltrans getting the homeless off the Caltrans property. So that kind of sparked that. But in any event, so I did ask the league to get involved in that perspective. And I also talked about the importance of firewise communities and looking at it, obviously Placer County has a huge concentration of them, but looking at it from a statewide, really get them more involved up and down the state of California. So we did talk about that. We also heard a report that for the climate bond, that the governor has the $10 billion climate bond, that the governor's allocated 325 million of 1.5 billion that was supposed to be for wildfire and forest resiliency for the fires down in Southern California. Yeah, this is the state. This is the bond measure that passed. There's been some discussion that perhaps the governor might appropriate the full 1.5 billion this fiscal year, but we don't have anything for sure yet. And there's also been, in the governor, let's see here, we talked about the fire hazard severity zone maps, which also I think is in our city manager's report, and we'll be having a look at those. And then I'm going to be taking a little trip, so please think fondly, or safe travels. I'm going to be traveling down to Diablo Canyon to take a look at the nuclear facility there. I'm part of this regional leadership forum on energy, and so we're going to have a little tour on Thursday and Friday. But I'm going to be flying in a little tiny plane in the storm. So anyway, but I'll have lots to talk about then. So that's all I'll talk about at this point.
Thank you so much. And Councilman Holmes, did you have any reports?
No.
Okay. And as with most of you, my committee, starting next week. Other than I do want to say, had the honor to hand out a proclamation to a 100-year-old young lady over at a rest home in North Auburn, but she was thrilled. It was on behalf of our city, and she was very excited. And we already talked about the symphony. Again, I just want to emphasize, support the symphony. They're wonderful. They really do a wonderful job. And that is all that we have. So I want to adjourn the meeting in honor of Ronnie Denton and Ron Lehow.
Yes.
So the meeting will be adjourned on their behalf.
There you go.
When did Ron Lehow die?
Just recently, like I